Now we're going to look at how to complete this particular object using curved center lines to put our radius dimensions on and those sorts of things. The one thing to keep in mind with this object is that all of these holes, everything about this object is based on this center point of this circle right here. So every dimension we pull, every arc center line, everything we're doing is coming off of this center point right here. So to get a curved center line running through, say, these holes out here, all we're going to do is use a circle and do a center radius circle. And then from it's going to lock on to what says the midpoint. It's the midpoint of that center mark line, which should be exactly the same thing as the center point of the circle. If you want to be sure, then you can just, if you hold down Shift and right click, you'll come up with this shortcut menu, and you can just choose which object snap you want it to focus on right now. And right now I want to focus on the center point of that circle up there. So I can choose center, and now all it'll focus on is the center points. So it'll find the center point of that circle as my start point for my circle I'm drawing. And then I just want to bring it out to where it hits. Again, if you want to, you can Shift, right click, choose center, and it'll lock on to the center point of this circle, which should line up exactly, and you can see it does with all of these. And so now this is going to become my center line. So what I can do is do a match property. Just select this line, say, hey, I want this to be a center line as well. And we may have to modify this a little bit, but for now it'll work. And what you want to do with center lines is they want to extend out a little bit so they're not confused with part of the object. So what we can do, and it's not a magic distance necessarily, but we're just going to draw a couple of lines just outside of the object and then trim using those as my cutting edges. Trim this circle back to where all I'm left with is this portion here. And so now this becomes my center line running through all these circles. So first glance it doesn't look too bad, but you can see here the line's running right through the center mark. Here it's running through it. Here it stops somewhere in between. This side has a gap, this side doesn't. So there's a lot of problems with the way this looks. What we really want is a clean look, kind of like this one right up here. We want a center mark with gaps all around, and then the other lines pick up. And so to make that happen, it's not necessarily a simple thing. It just takes a little bit of work, but not too bad. But if we just do another circle and we bring it out, you know, say, oh, that far, it can be anywhere between, and you got to look at the size of your center mark as well. So it can be anywhere in between right here. Some people actually take it to the outside. Since we have a large center mark, I'm going to try to keep it on the inside though. But if I just create a circle that's just a little bit smaller than my original, and then I can copy it to all these other ones. And what we're doing is we're just creating a point or a circle, in this case, an edge, to which we can trim back to. So now I can start the trim command, choose all of these interior circles that I just created that are just a little bit smaller than the originals, and then I can trim out the center line that I just created to where it meets all of those circles. And then I just come back and erase all these smaller diameter circles, because all those were for just to create a cutting edge. And so now I've got center marks that are plain. I've got a line running in between all of them that represents the center line. Again, if you want these to actually show up as a center line, then we would need to select them, and some of them are going to be pretty small, but we'd need to select them and then figure out what line type scale to put them at. And this quick properties dialog box does not have it on there. We'd have to look at the actual properties, but figure out what line type scale we could change them to actually be able to see these show up as center lines. And it would have to be pretty small, so it may not be feasible. But you could do, in this case, a 0.25, change the line type to a 0.25 line type scale to where they would show up as actual center lines running in between. So we could do that if we wanted to. And then we'd end up doing the same exact thing with this one hole right here. Just draw a circle from the center of this to where it meets that center point of that circle. Draw another circle just a little bit outside the center mark. And really and truly, since we have already have a line coming up to meet it here, we really want to make this meet that endpoint right there so that it's uniform all the way around. And then with this one, since it's just this one hole, we would probably just want to trim it off right here close to it. Maybe not even that far away, but that's what we're going to use. And then trim that circle back to where all we're left with is that. And then trim the line out from the inside. And so now we're left with a curved center line going through that. Again, not difficult. It just takes a little bit of time and effort. And then we can copy this short line up where we have that extending up, and we could do the same thing with each one of these. Copy that line from the end point of this extension to the top of that. Copy this one from the end point of that extension line to the top of the original. And just keep doing that same thing all the way across, or up around rather. This one we just need to go the opposite way to get those center lines extending out of the hole. To add the dimensions to this, there's a couple of tricks. Normally by default on a dimension style, this option is selected. Either texture arrows best fit on the fit tab. Now if we use that in the default position, and then I go and I try to put a radius dimension on some of these arc center lines that we just created. Like if I try to put a radius dimension on here, you can see what it's doing. It looks okay, but once I get to the center point, then it starts trying to kick the dimension itself, the leader and the extension line, way outside, and that's not necessarily what I want. So what I can do to make it look a little better is in that dim style, modify it, fit tab. If I just select text under fit options, and keep in mind this is what we're doing. If there's not enough room, the first thing to move outside is what? Text. Now, it's not going to act the way you think it will, but what it will allow us to do if we select text right here and then try to do that radius dimension, what it's going to do is attach it to the center point of the circle, so wherever I swing it, it's going to stay attached to it. So now it's a little better. I can actually put that dimension right there on it, and it'll stay right there. And then when I go to put a radius on, say, this one, then I can put it wherever I want to, and it's now attached to the center point, so it's obvious where that radius is coming from. You can see here the extension line's covering up our center mark, or our center line type, so I may not want that. I may want to swing it out here a little bit to where it's not messing up our center line type. And then I would just keep adding those radius dimensions wherever I wanted them, and they're always going to come off of that. And that again is created by going to the dim style, modifying it, and selecting text as far as fit options in this top box. And what that also does, and this may or may not be a good thing depending on how you're doing it, if you select the diameter, if we want to put a diameter for this hole, if we select it, what it also does is allows us to create a diameter dimension that has arrows on the inside of the hole, text on the outside. Okay, and so it's not giving me much control right now with text placement, but I can place the dimension itself where I want it, and select the grip on the text, and I can pull it out if I want to at this point. So that's not a big deal, and rotate it however I want to. And then back to a radius dimension for this outside curve. Same thing with it. It's not giving me a lot of options with the text right now, but once I place it, I can select that grip and move the text wherever I want it. So that would be the finished product. And again, all of this was created just by a simple measure of going to the dimension style, modifying it, and on the fit tab, selecting the text box, or text radio button rather.